as to where the priorities of government are and whether they sync or align with those of wananchi. So quickly, the key sector, the sectors that have got lion's share of allocation: education, about 800 billion. Followed closely by counties, devolution, 420 billion. Then we have healthcare, 175 billion. Now, if we look at education, this year we've seen the challenges that our education sector has experienced. Late capitation, so many schools struggling with welfare and upkeep. Learning materials still an issue in most public schools. And all those issues are compounded by late remittance of what has been allocated to schools. So we do hope that even with the increase in allocation, there can be fast-tracked remittance or timely remittance of allocated amounts to schools once this is finalized. Same thing to healthcare. We know of many stories that have been told by many Kenyans through media of Kenyans who can access medical services, drugs, across public healthcare facilities. And the hope then is that with the improved allocation, we can have most of this basic healthcare required stuff like drugs available for wananchi. Then there is those sectors that I believe which ought to have been really given a big allocation, considering what could be the impact to the economy. A good example.
Before we proceed, let's just, those are live images that are coming to you from the Treasury building, where we see the Cabinet Secretary in that signature pose there with his briefcase, as together with all the senior members of the Treasury, including policy advisors, economists, and the Principal Secretary. The Cabinet Secretary now plans to make his way to the National Assembly to deliver that budget statement anytime from now. As you can see, those are men and women who have played a significant role in putting together, piecing together the budget statement that will be presented to Kenyans anytime from now at the National Assembly. Okay.
Great. There are those sectors that we believe could have a higher impact in terms of improving the lives of Kenyans, which have not necessarily got more funding or a bigger allocation as we could have expected. A good example is, I'll tell you today that if you look at the employment sector in this country, about 18 million Kenyans are employed in the informal sector. 3 million Kenyans are employed in the formal sector. The 3 million Kenyans that are in the formal sector, these are the guys who have social security, these are the guys who have share contributions by themselves and the employer, these are the guys who pay tax. The other 18 million are in the Juakali sector. You know, informal employment, talk about agriculture and retail and wholesale sectors, generally Juakali. They don't pay tax, they have no social security, they have no healthcare cover. You understand, right? So what then could have been the expectation, looking at the absorption levels of employment, we see more Kenyans are employed in the informal sector. What then could have the budget done to ensure that we have an allocation that goes into revitalizing and expanding the informal sector, which then takes more people? The private sector employs 75% of the 3 million Kenyans who are in the formal sector. What budget initiatives have been factored in the budget to expand the role of private sector in growing our economy, which then should allow more Kenyans employed by the private sector? One of the ailing things for our manufacturing sector is electricity. We have seen many companies close shop in Kenya, move to other countries, for example, Egypt. The main reason why Egypt is looking as an attractive destination for investment is electricity. And probably the ease of doing business in Egypt could be probably better than Kenya. Now, what are we seeing in the budget that facilitates the manufacturing sector to make Kenya a manufacturing hub For example, I could have expected there to be an allocation to the energy sector to reduce our cost of electricity.
And as you can see, that is FCPA John Mbadi, who's the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, making his way to the National Assembly. As you can see, their security is tight. But this is equally a departure from what Kenyans are used to, that signature VW Passat that has been used by former ministers who have always used that, making its way to the National Assembly. But here we see it's a new vehicle altogether. It is Peugeot that is making its way to the National Assembly. But a few things to just know about John Mbadi. John Mbadi is the Kenyan expert and a politician serving as Cabinet Secretary. And one thing that you need to know as well about him, he was rather the national chairperson of Orange Democratic Movement Party. And, when you talk about John Mbadi, it will be remembered that he is a boy from the lakeside part of the region of the country, and he attended Ligongo Primary School and Kokuro Boys Secondary School, later joined University of Nairobi, and he earned a Bachelor of Commerce accounting option and a Master's of Business Administration. He is a certified public accountant and a member of the Institute of Certified Public Accounts of Kenya, ISPAC, and recently added the title FCPA to his name, where he says nowadays, as you address him, you must use the FCPA title that intends to describe who exactly he is. So he was elected to Parliament in 2007 to represent Gwasi constituency, later served as the elected MP for Suba South constituency, and subsequently became a nominated member of Parliament. So he served as Assistant Minister in the Prime Minister's office, leader of Minority 2017-2022, and chairperson of the powerful Public Accounts Committee. So if you look at his history, his education background, his professional background, he is a person where many would say he knows exactly what he is talking about. Remember, he joined the President Ruto's government after the famous, now what they call the broad-based government, where he came in and it was donated to the Kenya Kwanza government as an expert. Nowadays, he's called Expert FCPA, Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi. And remember, this is as well his second budget since the broad-based arrangement came into place, and this is the second time with that the briefcase as he presents his promises, policies on Kenya as well, on how exactly the government will be running, how the government intends to collect resources and funds from Kenyans to ensure that we are able to move with the same. Now let's touch base with Noah Kipkemboi. Noah, good afternoon to you. We see that the Cabinet Secretary is making his way to the National Assembly. How does it look from where it is you are? You're joining us through a phone call. Noah?
Good afternoon. Definitely a very busy place, as you can see. We were having the photo op. The Cabinet Secretary, of course, flanked with other financial wings of the government. So we had the presence of the Central Bank Governor. We also had the presence of the KRA DG, who's just been appointed, I think, a week or so in office. And this is quite critical. Right now, we are seeing that he's proceeding all the way to Parliament, and he's using a very familiar car that is synonymous with the budget. Ideally, Cabinet Secretaries sometimes choose to walk or use a set of vehicles, and here we have when you look at it, especially with gas prices and palm prices right now in the country, is opted that we should, move with the cars. In terms of the way things look in the ground here, it seems like a celebratory affair because of the flowers, flower lapels, because of Treasury, workers, many of them surrounding these infamous Peugeots that are taking the the cabinet secretary all the way to Parliament. Also flanked around this particular car. That's the fast car. So much interest on it. That is where the cabinet secretary is lots of offices. But the point is that this is the national budget. It is a big deal. It is the country planning itself in regards to how it will handle or allocate its finances. Now, paired to this, to the hip, of course, we know it is the finance bill, which is also how we will finance this particular budget. And that's where a lot of questions come in. I mean, how will we raise all this money, the trillions of shillings that we plan to spend in the coming financial year? And those are the hard questions that CPA John Mbadi Ngongo has to deal with, even as he enjoys the cool ride to Parliament, the National Assembly. But Aseto, lots of activities here, lots of movement. Of course, security is at the highest with officers, apart from the Pujo, whose logo is a lion. We also have horses on the ground. Yeah, we couldn't get lions, but horses are here with officers just to make sure that security is at a top-notch level. Earlier on, we had seen some won't call it demonstrations, but there were some people shouting, reject finance bill, and that particular, those voices were quelled or, put to a halt pretty quickly because of the demarcation, of course, security-wise around this area. But right now, the cabinet secretary